Hey, what's up guys, this is Shukesh once again. Well, there are already so many mid-range from Samsung, and now we have this new member Galaxy J5 Prime, which is priced at 15,000 rupees. The J7 Prime is already available at around 19,000 rupees. So there is 4,000 rupees difference, and these two devices are exactly same in exterior design except for the display resolution, the front-facing camera, battery, RAM, and also the CPU and GPU. I will discuss about all these things. Let's start with the display. Well, you have got a 5-inch screen on the J5 and 5.5 inches on the J7. The resolution on the J7 Prime is Full HD, whereas you have got a 720p screen on the J5. I am setting the same wallpaper so that you can get a better idea. The difference in resolution is not that much visible from this distance, but if you look very closely, you will notice the 401 ppi display on the J7 Prime is actually slightly smoother than the 294 ppi screen on the J5 Prime. Now the main reason you should consider the J5 Prime is the smaller screen. 5-inch screen size is perfect for one-handed uses. 5.5 inches might be bigger for a lot of you guys. Don't worry about the resolution of the J5, it's good enough for everyday normal uses. I think the J5 is more suitable. Apart from display, you have 3GB of RAM on the J7 Prime and 2GB RAM on the J5 Prime. This extra 1GB RAM can make a huge difference in multitasking. I will make a speed test at the end of this video to check that out. Now the CPU on the J5 Prime is just 1.43 GHz quad-core Cortex A53, whereas you have octa-core 1.59 GHz, so almost twice as fast. The chipset is Exynos 7870 versus 7570. The GPU is Mali T830 versus T720. So on the specs, the J7 Prime is much more powerful than the J5, but there is a catch. You have 1080p display on the J7 Prime, so the GPU has to push this high resolution and more intensive graphics, so you need more power. Now let me compare some benchmark scores on 3D Mark Gamers benchmark. The score on the J7 Prime is much better, as you can see. Now let's talk about the gaming performance. Now I have tried a lot of hardcore games on both smartphones, and unfortunately most of the graphics intensive games actually lag on both J7 and J5 Prime, though it's worse on the J5 Prime. This Nova 3 is still playable on the J7 Prime, though there is visible lag or frame drop. The J5 Prime is actually extremely laggy, sometimes not even playable. So for gaming, you should be considering the J7 Prime if you are into this Prime series. Otherwise, you can go for the J7 2016 or any other smartphone like the Moto G4 Plus or even the Redmi Note 3. Mid-range games like Dead Trigger 2, 6 Guns are easily playable on both J7 and J5 Prime. If you are not a hardcore gamer, you can consider the smartphones considering the awesome design, the display quality, the battery and the camera. Now I already uploaded a detailed speed test in between these two smartphones, so let's have a look. Well, the J7 Prime is ready and the J5 Prime is still working on the boot. There you go, it's ready as well. Now I will launch some system and third-party apps to check the app opening time on both smartphones. So let's get started with the dialer. The J5 Prime is the quicker one, so let's move to the next app. There we have the camera, and this time the J7 Prime is the winner. Next, let's try the gallery. Once again, the J7 Prime is the quicker one. I have Facebook installed, so let's check this as well. Once again, I think both smartphones here are neck to neck, though the J7 Prime is actually slightly faster in opening the post, so I will say it's the winner. The Samsung Music app also loaded almost at the same time. On the optical reader, it's a draw once again. So overall, I think both J7 and J5 Prime are very close in this speed test. Let's now check some hardcore games. Let's start with this Nova 3. Well, the J7 Prime has loaded the game already. The bigger 3GB RAM might be helping here. Once again, the bigger brother J7 Prime is the winner. Well, Subway Surfers loaded on the J5 Prime before the J7 Prime, so it's getting very confusing now. And on Temple Run 2, the J7 Prime is the faster one. Now let's try to load the first app I opened. Let's start with the messaging app, and surprisingly the J7 Prime reloaded this application, which I really didn't expect. 3GB RAM should be able to handle all these apps. Next, I want to try the Facebook application and let's see what happens. Once again, the J7 Prime is reloading just like the J5 Prime, so I'm totally disappointed here. Next, let's try the Play Store app. Well, once again the J7 Prime is reloading. J5 Prime has it in the memory, so there must be something wrong with my device with my J7 Prime. The full 3GB RAM is not being used. I think Samsung could have actually put a cap on maximum RAM uses to save battery and also to control overheating. Next, let's check Asphalt 8. And this game is loading on both phones. I have done speed test on a lot of other smartphones with 3GB RAM, and almost all those phones were able to handle all these games on their RAM, so I think the whole 3GB RAM is not being used on the J7 Prime. Exactly the same thing happened to my OnePlus 3, which has mammoth 6GB of RAM. OnePlus partially fixed this with some OTA updates, but the battery performance has degraded. Well, this is the end of the speed test, and overall the interface on both J7 and J5 Prime are equally fast. This speed test is a tie. Despite having more RAM and more powerful CPU and GPU, the J7 Prime is just as good as the J5 Prime, mainly because of the Full HD screen as I mentioned before. Now let's compare the cameras. You have exactly the same cameras at the back, that is 13 megapixel f1.9. The front cameras are totally different. Now regarding autofocusing, both smartphones perform equally well, though sometimes the J7 Prime struggles. Overall, I think the J5 Prime has more reliable focusing. Now as far as video quality is concerned, as you can see, both cameras capture exactly the same quality video with same exposure, same color. The still images are also almost identical, so there is basically no difference at all on the rear camera of J7 and J5 Prime. Now you might have noticed this video is in 4K, so I request you to watch at least this part in full resolution to get a better idea. Both cameras are equally awesome. Samsung makes the best camera phones in the mid-range category. Now let's watch this video and then I will compare the front cameras. Now let's compare the front camera samples. On the left you have the J7 Prime and on the right you have the J5 Prime samples. Now as you can see, the J5 Prime samples are slightly overexposed, whereas the J7 Prime's camera captures more details. This is an 8 megapixel shooter with f1.9 maximum aperture compared to 5 megapixel f2.2 on the J5. But apart from resolution, the image quality is, I think, very close. The color recording is almost identical, though I think the J7 Prime is slightly more noisy. Well friends, we are at the end of this in-depth comparison and it's up to you which one you prefer. I think the J7 Prime is worth the extra price considering the higher resolution, bigger display and also the better front camera. But the J5 Prime is also very close. In fact, for everyday normal uses, you should go for the smaller J5 Prime. That's all in this review. Thanks a lot for watching. Keep in touch and don't forget to subscribe for more videos on these smartphones. This is Shukesh and have a nice day.